Hi everybody, all my little peepers. Welcome to a new episode of What's New in Shalene's Neck of the Woods. Now, if I look at my coloring book, I have a lot of light on it. The sunlight's coming through the window, but when I look on this view screen, it looks like shadows, which I do not know why, because there is no shadows. I don't know what the problem is. So please bear with me. I cannot figure out what's wrong. Hold on. I'll go get my hot light and try that. Okay, I have my hot light. We'll try it and see what happens. Is that any better? Well, I don't know why there's shadow. There's no shadow. It's just on the camera for some reason. See, I'll move the hot light over here. Does that do anything? Does that help? Hope. That just makes a shadow from the hot light. Well, sorry everybody. I don't know what to tell you. I have an overhead light on. And like I said, the blinds are open. Oh, sunlight's coming through. That help at all? Nope. Whoops, that was my foot. So, I'm just letting all of you know before I get any complaints, there's no reason for the shadows. So, I'm still working out of Enchanted Forest by Johanna Basford. This is my buddy color with Katrina. And I'm still plugging away on it. I'm still using my Luminance pencils, but I also did add in my Prismacolors because the Luminance only has 72 colors. Whereas the Prismacolors have 150. And I was working on these leaves the last time I colored. So, let's see. What are you all coloring? So I couldn't decide if I was going to talk about friendships or pets today. Might go with pets. I have always had pets. Growing up, we had cats. We had dogs. I had gerbils. I had hamsters. I had a guinea pig. Loved my guinea pig. Oh, and then I watched a tutorial, I think it was Coloring Pages Bliss, and how to use this Tagal sharpener. So I'm going to try this today. When she used it, she liked it at first, and after a while it no longer sharpened her pencils. And the person that sent me this said the same thing. So we'll see. I will try it. Okay, so we're going to work on these mushrooms. Can you see them? Okay, so pets. Right now, Daenerys has decided that she will eat her breakfast at dinner time. So that's what you are hearing in the background. She has this thing with not wanting to eat for other people if I'm not home. It's just a weird dog. She's my dog, so I guess that's how she feels. So, Scott and I moved into our home Halloween of 1987. Yes, we have been here that long. So, the first night here, we had to sleep on the floor because we had brought my bed here, which was a queen-size water bed. And so we had to fill it that day. And I think it was done being filled, but you can't sleep on it until it gets to the right temperature. So, well, hello, Pearl. So as we were laying there, Scott said, we need a cat. He's a cat person more than a dog person. Prefers to have cats. And I said, okay. And he says, well, when you go to work tomorrow, ask if anybody has any kittens, which nobody did. So we had found an ad. No, there was a pet store at the time in the town I grew up in. And we stopped there, and on the bulletin board was an ad for free kittens. So my best friend and I called and went and picked out a kitten. And I named her Natasha. She was a gray striped cat. We had her for a couple years. All her shots, had her fixed. She was an indoor cat. She liked to play this game of sneaking past me when I unloaded the car from groceries, and she'd roll around on the sidewalk next to the steps going into the trailer. So one night was the Northern Lights. And I didn't turn on the porch light because I wanted to see the Northern Lights, and I did not see Natasha sneak out, and she must have rolled around on the sidewalk, and I did not bring her in. because I didn't see her sneak out. So later that night, I went to feed the animals, and, well, I don't remember if I had both dogs yet. I did have one dog. I don't even remember how many cats I had at that point. We've always had a few cats, so I probably had more than her. But I don't remember at this point. I just remember having to go and feed them. So I went to feed them. I could not find her. So I went outside and I called her and nothing. And I'm like, well, where did she go? Because I didn't see her sneak out. So in the morning, Scott left and he came in and said that she'd been hit by a car. So I blamed myself for many, many years. Because I didn't have the porch light on. So I wanted to see the northern lights. So I didn't see her sneak out. And our first dog we had was my uncle's dog. She was like a year and a half. She was part wolf and part shepherd. He asked us to take her because he lived right in a town right next to a school district, and she knew how to get loose and would take off, and they were afraid something would happen to her, so they asked us to take her. We had her for 16 years. She started being incontinent. So they gave us pills for that, and then it got to the point where she had no control over her bowels. And so I couldn't have her in the house anymore. Now, with her being wolf, she did not like being in the house anyways. Hated it. Hated being in the house. And the worse the snowstorm was, the better she loved it. It just was in her nature. She was pretty much an outdoor dog. She had a dog run. And we always kept her doghouse insulated for the winter. So she's pretty good. But I told Scott, well, the last year we had her, she didn't want to be outside. I think it was the cold was just starting to get to her. And when she started losing control of her bowels, I told Scott, it's time. He didn't want to admit it, but it was time, and she led a good life. So yeah, we had her for 16 years. Also along with her, I had a German Shepherd. Scott had gotten her as a puppy for me for my birthday. And I don't remember if I got her right around the time I gave birth to Justin, or if I got her a year before Justin was born. I don't remember. I had her for 12 years. My boys grew up with her. They could do anything they wanted to that dog. They would climb over her. They could pick her nose. They could play with her ears, and she would just lay there. And if she did have enough, she'd just walk away and go in another room. She didn't do that very often. She had a litter of puppies before we had her fixed, which was an accident because the other dog had taught her how to take her collar off. And so one day she took her collar off. She was gone all day long, and she came back pregnant. She had 13 puppies. They were all different. Oh, see now, that's the point at number 4 on the T-Gal. So we'll see how long I end up liking this. So my Shepherd Wolf mix had gotten into trouble because one stormy, blizzardy night she got loose, and I had just let the puppy out, had just put her out on her chain. She was only supposed to be out for like 5 minutes because I was going to let her back in. She had to go potty. We had a chain for her. She was only tied up out there if we weren't outside, and she had to go potty. Otherwise, if I was outside, she wasn't tied up. So, during this yucky weather, the other dog and her took off. Scott was working nights. He's always worked nights, even at his other job. And I ended up calling him at work crying, "Your dog took my dog. I don't know where they're at." Really, Pearl? Pearl is laying on my Prismacolor pencil case. I can't get to the pencils. So I had that German Shepherd. I ended up calling the neighbor across the road because if the dogs got loose, they'd go to her place. She had a log cabin way back in the woods, and they loved to go into her place. She had horses, and they'd go up there and play all the time. So she said, nope, they weren't at her place. So I was really upset. I was afraid they'd be out in the road, and they'd get hit by the snowplow. So I was not happy with that other dog. Pearl, I cannot get to the colored pencils. Really? I'm going to show you what this cat has done. Ready? If you can see it. Do you see her? She's laying on my pencils. They were gone a couple of hours, and they came back very tired, and I was not a happy mama. I had that German Shepherd for 12 years. The boys grew up with her. Like I said, they could do anything that they wanted to her. They could not with the Wolf Shepherd mix because she was abused as a puppy from one of my uncle's friends. He had taken her from him. And you could not touch her paws or her tail. So knowing this, the boys as toddlers and babies could not be left alone with her. She was good with them, but I couldn't take the chance of them touching her tail or her paws. So when they were older, they were able to spend a lot of time with her outside. And, you know, once they were old enough to know you can't touch her paws, then they played with her. But I had the other German Shepherd for 12 years. She was a good dog. She ended up, it's some kind of blood disorder or something that they get. And she collapsed on me once. I didn't know why she collapsed. And the second time she collapsed, we took her to the vet and we ended up having to put her down. I'm not trying to make this all morbid today. I'm just telling you all the pets we had. So I had a really tough time with her being gone. And I moped. I was a stay-at-home mom, so I was used to having the dog all the time. So Scott came home one day with an ad in the newspaper for a Rottie Shepherd mix that was 1.5 years old. And he told me to call. So I called. And I said, well, first of all, I need to know if he gets along with kids. And she said, yes. She says, I'm a rescue place. I have my own kids. They've been playing with him. He loves kids. I said, what about cats? And she says, I have cats in the house and all over. Outside, he gets along great with the cats. He gets along with other dogs. He came from a great home. It's just that they had to move and couldn't take the pets with them. So Scott says, well, let's go check him out. And I'm still kind of hemming and hawing, but he said I had to have a dog because he was tired of my moping. So I babysat at the time. So we picked up the 2 kids I babysat and my 2 boys. We get in the van and we get there. She's coming out of her house with the dog on the leash. I get out of the van and our eyes met each other and it was instant. He came running to me and it was instant love. And it was like that the whole time I owned him. If the boys were naughty and I happened to swat them one on their behinds, the dog didn't care. But if Dylan pretended that he was going to hit me, or if Scott pretended he was going to hit me because we were wrestling around, the dog would let them know that he did not like that. He would just very gently put their arms in his mouth and pull them away from me. In fact, he didn't even like Scott sitting next to me on the couch. He was always with me. Very friendly. Let anybody in the house, might not let you out. And I had 12 or 13 years with him. And whoever owned him did an awesome job training him. He was so good. He only chewed 2 pillows once off my couch. And when we got home and saw that, Scott picked him up off his feet and told him no, and he never touched another one again. Very good dog. Really, Pearl, you really have to help me? You're so pretty. And right around the time Scott and I got married, which was 88, he had gone to a bait shop with my dad. I was at my parents' house, and Scott and my dad had gone to this bait shop. And Scott came back all excited, telling me about this cat he saw. It was a tortoise. And I said, okay. And he said, well, I would really like her. They have her in the bait shop, but the owner says that she prefers to be in the house with the wife. He said, can we go get her? And I said, okay. So we went to the bait shop, and I liked her instantly. And she was a talker. From the time we got her till she was gone. We had her for 16 years. She loved the dogs. So yeah, that's our second cat we had. Because I'm trying to think. I don't remember what order we got all the cats. But I also know we got Smokey right before that. A couple of ladies came into work and was telling me about a cat that was out on the back roads. And it had been storming out, a snowstorm. And they were worried that it was going to freeze to death. So I followed them when we left work, and they showed me the cat, and I couldn't get near it, and it looked frostbitten and just looked really bad. And I thought, well, I'll get Scott, and if we have to, we'll just put him to sleep. So we get to the cat, I get Scott, we get there, and the cat lets us pick it up. So we get him home. I made a vet appointment for the next day. And really, Pearl, I need to finish coloring. He ate so much food, I thought he was going to be sick. We thought he was a kitten. That's how malnutritioned he was. Malnourished, whatever. He's blind in one eye. Kept eating and eating. So take him to the vet the next day, and they tell us he's 2 years old. And his one eye was all white. They think maybe either he got hit by maybe a stick or a dog got a hold of him. So, well, he's not afraid of dogs. So he was pure gray. And after Justin was born, if someone came to the house to visit and held on to Justin, he would lay on the armchair or the arm of the chair or the couch where they were holding Justin. He was a guard cat. He would sleep in the hallway every night outside Justin's door. We only had him for a couple of years. He got crystals. And the vet we had at the time had told us that he was in so much pain that he probably wouldn't have made it through surgery. Then we picked up, let's see, we've had so many cats. I know not too long after that, we were driving and we saw a little gray cat hanging out by the road. And Scott says, if it's still out there when we come back through, I want to get it. And I said, okay. So we came back through. She's still out there. So we stopped at the house. And the man answered the door. And Scott said, is that your little gray cat? And he said, yes. And Scott said, we stopped because she's been hanging out by the road. We'd like to take her home. So we looked in the house and just told Scott, hurry up and take her. So we did. We had her for 10 years. She was such a good girl. She had 2 litters of kittens. She was an indoor cat, but the neighbor's cat sometimes would come in our house. Otherwise, just about every animal we've owned has always been fixed. Once in a while we would get one that didn't get fixed, but after she had her second litter, she was spayed. She got cancer at the age of 10. We kept the first litter of kittens. She only had 2. She was having a really tough time giving birth, and the vet talked us through her contractions. And the first kitten was stillborn. The second kitten we kept. Second batch of kittens, she had a few, and I found homes for all of them but 2, so we kept the 2. And then they ended up running away, but a few months later one of them came back and was an indoor cat from then on. I don't like letting cats outside. I try to make them indoor cats. I don't even remember all the cats. It's just gotten really hard. So yeah, we kept the 3 kittens total that she had. And then, like I said, the one never came back. And they all passed away of old age. Now, Bootsy, who was the tortie, she ended up with kidney disease. So we had to hook her up to an IV every once in a while. And we did that for 2 years, and then finally she'd had enough. And I told Scott it was time, because the vet didn't think we'd get another year out of her once we started the IV, and we got 2 out of her, so we were lucky. She was our favorite cat. And yeah, we had the 16 years. And what else? Oh, then we had a orange tiger show up here at our house. And he stuck around, so we got him his shots, got him fixed, and then 2 weeks later he was hit. I would have made him an indoor cat, but he was a stray and was used to being outside and just did not like that idea. Then one day Scott was over at the shop down the road, and he's sending me pictures of this little pure gray cat. He likes pure gray. He'd love a Russian blue. And he likes torties. And he sent me pictures of this little gray cat, and I said, "Are you going to get it?" And he said, "No." So Dylan came home, and I was telling Dylan, so Dylan brought it home. So Scott doesn't know it's home yet. He's sleeping because he's got to go into work that night. So Dylan, I had to go drop off at a friend's house because he was getting ready to go camping. And we start walking to my car. And we had left the kitten in his bedroom. We're walking to my car, and you could hear it just screaming in his bedroom. Like, what are we going to do? He's going to wake up your dad. So Dylan says, "Well, let's take the kitten with us." I said, "Okay." So we take the kitten with us. And I drop Dylan off at his friend's house. And before I leave, I point at the kitten, who I named Speedy. And I told him, "You will lay there in that passenger seat. You will not come up in my face. You will not get in my way or get down by my feet. You will behave in my car." That cat looked at me, curled up in a ball on the passenger seat, and slept all the way home. That cat and I were inseparable from that moment on. I made him an indoor cat. He did try to sneak out once in a while. And he slept every night wrapped around my neck. That's how I slept. And if I took him off, he'd come right back. We had him for a couple years, and he kept trying to sneak outside, and he got out one day and he got hit. We live out in the country. He'd only been outside for maybe 10 minutes. That was really rough, sleeping. Without him. And I have Rascal, who at the time we were told by the neighbor was thrown out of a car window. He was a kitten. Well, Dylan had gone over to the neighbors, and she was telling Dylan about this cat, that this car had slowed down and tossed this kitten out of the car window the night before. We weren't home. So she says to Dylan, go ask your mom if you can have him. And Dylan said, no, she'll tell me no. Just give me the kitten. And she says, okay. Because Dylan knows how my heart is with animals. So he walks in the house with the kitten in front of his face, holding it up in front of his face so the kitten is facing me. And he says, Mom, this little kitten was thrown out of a car window last night. And I said, what? And he says, yeah, the neighbor saw it happen. And I said, you give him to me, he's so cute. So that's how we kept him. And Dylan said they had other kittens in their house next door, so I didn't think anything of it, neither did Dylan, until we found out. Oh, it had been quite a few months. Dylan would come over from their house, came over with an expensive pair of sneakers one day. I said, where'd you get those? Well, the girl that lived there, the daughter, her and her boyfriend broke up. And he left the sneakers behind. So they let Dylan have them. That makes sense to me. Okay. Dylan would come home. I think he came home with a Walkman one time. That was the girl's. She didn't want it anymore. She got a different one. I said, okay. Not think anything of it. And then several months later, the daughter and the mother get arrested because the next town over, they had been robbing houses. Yep, she taught her teenage daughter how to rob houses. So after that, Dylan and I looked at each other and he said, I bet you those sneakers did not come from her ex-boyfriend. I said, oh, probably not. And then he says, I wonder about that Walkman. Yeah. You know, things started adding up. And then we got wondering if Rascal had really been thrown out of her car window or if she had taken it from one of the houses. All those kittens that she had. We still have him. And he is, oh my gosh. He's got to be at least 13 years old. And we have the outsider, who was a stray. Just showed up on our yard one day and never left. And we've tried to make him an indoor cat, and that's not going to happen. So right now he's the only one that goes outside. But because we have Fox, he has to come in at night. He has a curfew. And say, I had the other Roddy German Shepherd. I had him for 12 years. And he had the same thing that my other German Shepherd had. He collapsed on us and couldn't walk. Wasn't his hips, it's something else. Oops, I gotta move this. Really, Pearl? Come on. And you guys probably can't see what I'm coloring now, right? Is that you knocking on my screen? Can you see? Oh, I guess you can. Pearl. Pearl. Move. You see? So, yeah, I had him for 12 years. The best dog we ever owned. Keep going off on rabbit holes. Rabbit trails, is that what Dee Dee says? How long have I been recording? I guess I better speed this up. So we had him for 12 years. He collapsed around 5 a.m. in the morning. And that one did me in. I couldn't function. I was a wreck for months. Scott wanted to get me another dog, and I said absolutely not. Did not want another dog. So about a year later, I decided I would like another dog. I would like another Shepherd or a Roddy or a mix, Shepherd-Roddy mix. We would go looking at all the websites in our area, the dog shelters. Couldn't find anything. And then when I would, they would be like 12 years old and on their last leg, but they need to be adopted. I'm like, I can't do that. So I ended up finding I was told was a Shepherd mix, Shepherd Lab mix. I was so excited that I adopted her. Even though she didn't want to play with me or anything. I'm like, well, she's just excited. She didn't really like me. I had her. I tried training her. They didn't have any background on her. She was found out on the back roads. She did not like me. I could not control her. She loved Justin. She did not like me. I had her for a year. I dreaded coming home from work. I did not want to come home from work. She would knock me down. The vet said she was a yellow lab golden retriever mix. There was no Shepherd in her. And I thought, well, they're usually easy to train. This dog was so hyper, I couldn't do anything with her. So after a year, I got ready to go away on vacation, and I looked at Scott and I said, you need to find a home for her. She needs to be gone when I come back from vacation. I can't. I have done everything I can with her. I've trained all my other dogs. I had a couple of them as puppies. I've never had a problem with any of them. So he happened to mention at the gas station one day while he was pumping someone's gas, how would you like a dog? And the guy said, well, what kind? And Scott told him, and he said, no, my wife will kill me. Or no, he said, Scott didn't tell him what kind. The guy says, no, my wife will kill me. And his wife was in the car, and she goes, well, what kind of dog is it? So Scott told her, and she goes, really? So they said, okay, we'll take her. They wanted all her toys. They wanted her leash and everything. I said, okay. They loved her. That they said she's a very high maintenance dog. She has to be on the go 24/7. She was tiring out their dogs. They owned a lot of property. They had horses. She'd go on horseback rides with them. And they have a daughter. I don't know if she has seizures or what, but she is her guide dog. Her service dog, that's what it is. And the dog actually stays with that girl in her dorm, and she's the mascot of that dorm. And for some reason, I was supposed to adopt her, but find a home for her. And I am so glad that she has the home that she has now, because she was not meant for us at all. So I still wanted another dog. So I took a year, taking my time. We couldn't find anything. And on Thanksgiving of 2014, I left my parents, and my sister texted me, and she said her boyfriend found an ad on Facebook for Shepherd Rottie Mix puppies. They're free. I said, okay, so they gave me the number, and I called. They're 2 hours away. And the people said she was born in November. They will be ready for pickup the week of Christmas. But I could buy a collar now and pick out the puppy I want, and then put the collar on her. So I told Scott, and he said, yep. So we bought a collar, and I picked her out, and that's how we got Daenerys. So she was my Christmas baby. Now we have three other kits I haven't even talked about yet. We have Molly. Molly I got in 2009. I happened to be at Petco, and I fell in love with her face. And after a couple days, I kept talking about her, and finally Scott says, well, go get her. So I emailed, because Petco gets their cats from the animal shelter. So I had emailed the animal shelter and told them that I had seen Molly in Petco, and I'm really interested in her. I have other cats, and I have a dog who loves cats. And I let them know the name of the vet, and so then I got a reply back. It takes a couple days. The person that does all the paperwork at Petco would be there the next day, and then they have to go through the paperwork and approve it. And I said, okay. So I took Dylan. We went to Petco. I filled out the paperwork. The person wasn't there yet, so I left it with the employees of Petco. I had just left there when my cell phone rang, and it was the lady that lets you adopt. And she said I was already approved. Molly was 3 years old then. She was already had her shots. She was already spayed, and her front claws had been, her front paws were declawed. She had lived, I think, with an elderly lady, and she passed away. And I said, okay. So she says, come on back, turn around, come back. I said, well, I got to go get the cat carrier. She says, okay, I'll still be here. So I went and got the cat carrier and went back and picked up Molly. And the dog I had at the time was the Rottie Shepherd mix, the first one I had. And it was instant love with them. They're best friends. Then in 2010, I only got a couple minutes left on this camera, so I'm going to speed this up. 2010, I ended up with, well, Dylan adopted Ruby from a friend. She was a kitten. He was living in an apartment with 2 friends while they were going to school in PA. And his friends, and the landlord said they could have a cat. And his friends said, yes, you can have the cat. Well, this cat was spoiled. She climbed counters, she climbed curtains. Dylan had brought her home for Thanksgiving break, because they all came home for Thanksgiving break. Went back, and his roommates had dropped out of school, and we're going back home. Dylan's like, I can't afford an apartment on my own. I can't live here. I've been looking for jobs. Nothing. I said, let the school know what's going on. They will find roommates for you. That's what they told us. So he ended up finding a roommate. His roommate is allergic to cats. So Dylan says, what do I do with Ruby? He goes, should I go take her at a farm and just drop her off? And I said, absolutely not. I said, are you coming home this weekend? And he said, yes. I said, just bring her. I'll take her. So that's how I ended up with Ruby. So the past 2 days, Ruby has not been eating or drinking. She lays on my bed, doesn't have to go potty, nothing. She's not doing anything. So this morning I get up. So I cried myself to sleep last night with her, and around 5 o'clock this morning, 4 o'clock, the dog wakes up. She has to go potty. I said, okay. So I let her out. I check on Ruby. Ruby's sitting up cleaning herself. Now that's the first time she's done that in 2 days. How many minutes? It's going to be shutting off soon. So needless to say, I got him cut this short. She's very allergic to fleas, and even though I gave her flea medicine, she's still having problems. So that's what's wrong with her. She got overwhelmed from all the licking and the scratching. I gave her medicine. They found a lot of dead fleas on her. But she's okay. So I will have to explain about Pearl in another video. But Ruby's 7, and she'll be okay. So I'm going to say goodbye to all you peepers, and stay tuned for a new episode of What's New in Shalene's Neck of the Woods. Bye, everybody.